Good morning. Today's scripture reading will be taken from Numbers chapter 15, verses 37 through 40. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put upon the fringe of the border a ribbon of blue. And it shall be unto you for a fringe, that ye may look upon it, and remember all the commandments of the Lord, and do them, and that ye seek not after your own heart and your own eyes, after which ye used to go a whoring, that ye may remember and do all my commandments, and be holy unto your God.
Great job, Scott. Way to go, buddy. That was a long one from the Old Testament, too. Oh, what a perfect day to illustrate what it is that we have here. It's kind of nice to consider as you look outside. The bluebird skies, aren't they? So it's even a little better than what I'm showing you right here. You go outside and you look up, and what's the first color that you notice? Well, I guess it can depend on how cloudy the day is. But even in this or outside today, the color that really stands out to you is the color blue. Look up to the heavens, God says, in order to find Him. If you ever notice, it's never look down or look across in front or behind to find Him. It's always look up. Look up to the heavens, and you will see Him. The place where God dwells, it's a beautiful place called heaven. And when you look up to heaven, as long as there are no clouds in the sky, or if you're to go above even where a cloud deck is, when there's light, all that you see is the color blue. It seems that in the Bible, blue is the color of heaven. And I want to tell you why that's of tremendous significance to us. So as we open the Bible together, and in particular, we'll be in the Old Testament for all of the verses that will be on the screen this morning, all right? In the Old Testament, you find that blue was utilized in the place where God was adored by His saints. We're going to start in chapter 26 of Exodus and the first verse. Verse 1 of Exodus 26. God speaking, Moreover, you shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine woven linen and blue, purple, and scarlet thread. I know our concentration for this particular setting is just one color in blue, but you're going to see all throughout some other colors. The fine woven linen is going to be of white, purple, blue, and scarlet, which of course is a shade of red. Since we'll have so much discussion, though, on the tabernacle, I just want us to be refreshed on what exactly the Old Testament portable house of worship was. This is the facility that precedes the construction of the solid edifice of the temple. And the meaning of tabernacle is a tent, as you can tell by the diagram. There are three primary realms of this Old Testament worship tent. One is the holy place. We'll talk more about its contents here in just a little bit. But on the outside of that, inside of this area where the priest would go to do their bidding, before they would enter into the holy place, which is the tabernacle proper, they would encounter two structures. The first of these is the bronze altar. And this is where all these animals are burned as a sacrifice to God after their blood is shed out on the ground, and some of it will be saved as well. So there's the bronze altar where sacrifice is made. And then look at the one that appears to be a bird bath. That's actually a man bath and not a bird bath. It was used by human beings and priests in particular, because before they can go into the tabernacle, into the holy place, there first has to be a sacrifice made even for them. Blood of the innocent creature would be sprinkled on them, and then they would have to be washed and made what was called pure or purified via this water. Sprinkled with blood, washed with water, and then we'll learn later on a very special clothing. They have to put on new clothes before they're allowed to go into the holy place and be considered holy to do the work of God. But I want to show this tabernacle right now for one reason, that there are 10 curtains that were to be used around to constitute the tabernacle proper, and there are 3 types of thread, certain colors. Now, if it makes no difference to God what thread is used, why would he keep talking about these colors over and over? Blue, purple, and scarlet. Right now, I don't want to get just like super deeply into it right now, especially with the other colors. You're probably aware, though, that purple is the color of royalty. And with scarlet, it's the color of blood, sacrifice, and what that represents, forgiveness. Now, you think about this holy place where God's very special servants, the priest, he wants them to go. They can only go in after they've been made holy, once they've been sprinkled with the blood of an innocent specimen, they've been washed in water, and once they become clothed in holy garments. And you think about our conversion process, that Hebrews chapters 10 says that we've been sprinkled from an evil conscience with the blood from chapter 9 of the Holy One and the perfect sacrifice that he gave. He says your bodies have been washed with pure water. Galatians 3:27, as many of you as were washed in that water, made clean, have been baptized into Christ. You put on, some translations have there, you become clothed with Christ. Your garments have been changed. So God typifies our whole conversion process 1,500 years before it begins to take place. But entering into the holy place, once you've been made holy, the threads constantly that are used are that of red, blood, forgiveness, royalty, purple, and the color of heaven, blue. The message of which is this: God is working so hard to get his people to become holy. And he has this process that he's put into place by which they may do so through his grace, by his mercy, understood, to enter into the blue heaven and to make us kings, purple, royalty. But the only way for that is through the color scarlet, red, blood, sacrifice to forgive us, because we're not good enough to do it on our own. All right, I'm going to leave the red and purple there because that's for another time. That I didn't want to just look at those and merely concentrate on one, but I feel like for the most part we can do that now on the purple moving forward. Look at Exodus 26, verse 4. You shall make loops of blue yarn on the edge of the curtain on one set, and likewise you shall do on the outer edge of the second set. Likewise what? Blue. I want blue on it, blue yarn. Verse 31, you shall make a veil woven of blue thread. Verse 36, you shall make a screen for the door of the tabernacle, woven of blue thread. So I mentioned in the tabernacle that there are 3 main sections. There's the outer portion where the priests receive their sanctification. Then once they're sanctified or made holy, they're allowed to enter into the holy place. And as you see in this diagram in the tabernacle proper, you go into the holy place and you're going to encounter pieces like the table of showbread, the golden lampstand, and then right before you get into the most holy place, there's a covering that goes across that entire front. Only half of it is open so we could see in the diagram what was found behind. But ordinarily you could not see this because the curtain had been pulled. And even though through this symbolism you've been made holy as a priest, not even you as a holy person have the right to enter into the most holy place. In fact, right before you get into it, that small square-like structure that comes up, probably waist to maybe chest high, is called the golden incense or the golden altar of incense. And on it there would be this incense that would be burned. You ever burn incense in your house? You know, as kids, we thought, wow, you know, we'd buy that stuff. It'd be like a 20-pack of these sticks from the dollar shop. It'd be like $1 for like 20 of these. We would burn and burn those in our rooms. Well, I should say, we'd start burning those in our rooms until Mom and Dad would say, put that stuff out, that stinks. This is probably a better incense, better quality than what we used to burn in our house. There would be this altar of incense, and it would be offered up in a firebox that would be taken from it. And the high priest only had privilege from God one time a year to go into the most holy place, because that represented the presence of God himself. Think about it. Most holy place, you would expect to find the most holy being. And that presence of the Lord is symbolized through the Ark of the Covenant that, as long as the Israelites had it, was found in this room. And there are these two cherubim. We'll talk more about them in a moment. Their wings would swoop over on the top of the mercy seat, and their wings would touch one another, one on each end. There would be these poles of acacia wood found that would be used to carry the ark around when it needed to be transported. But inside the Ark of the Covenant, there were three very important pieces. Number one, you had Aaron's rod that as a dead stick put forth leaves. And then there was a golden pot that had manna inside from when the Israelites wandered in the wilderness, and it never did rot. It was still good. And the final thing, a couple things actually, that were in there that go together, the two tablets, the stone, the law, in which God's own handwriting of the 10 Commandments were found. Presence of God in this place, representative of the most holy place, heaven itself. Does it make sense, though, when you're reading about how all this is to be woven, sewn together? Blue, 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 blue. God says, including the veil as you pass as his holy, special servants into the most holy place. You're passing into what's representative of heaven itself. So what color would you use? But blue, the color of heaven. As these pieces of the tabernacle are constructed and sewn together, Moses is instructed, verse 1 of Exodus 26, with artistic designs of cherubim, you shall weave them. I told you we'd talk about the cherubim more. That's a plural word. The singular of that is cherub. So if you want more than one, you say cherubim, not cherubims. It's a pet peeve of mine. It becomes plural. A Hebrew noun, I am, equals English S, okay, or ES, or whatever else it might be. IES. It's a plurality. These are fascinating creatures from the Scriptures. It's widely believed that the cherubim and the seraphim are special classes of angels. This is what makes the most amount of sense, at least it does to me, to most people. Now here is a depiction of how a cherub is described in the Bible. You'll see them with multiple heads, that of an eagle, a lion, an ox, and a man. And they have two sets of wings, so 4 wings total, as contrasted with seraphim that have 3 sets of wings, 6 wings total. But if in a vision or maybe in real life that God manifests it to you, this is something similar to what you would see when you would perceive cherubim. The importance of cherubim is they're always located near to God. And if you're a fan of prepositions, positions, above, below, across, up, down, et cetera, all that kind of stuff, they're always depicted to be below God, but always in his presence. And when we're reading this passage, we encounter where God wants all this blue thread to be used and sewn in. And he says, as you're using all this blue and interweaving all of these things, I want you to put artistic designs of cherubim in there. Well, cherubim are found in the presence of God. We know where God is located. That's in the wonderful place known as heaven, and is represented by the color of blue in Scripture, so it adds up that God would have so much blue to be used for them. The next chapter of Exodus, 27, verse 16, for the gate of the court there shall be a screen 20 cubits long, woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen. You see those four things over and over. The thread, typically blue, purple, and scarlet. Sometimes there'll be some gold that's mixed in. Fine woven linen, white, symbolic of purity and holiness. Made by a weaver, it shall have 4 pillars and 4 sockets. If you don't mind, I want to show you something just for a minute that's really neat. So we had the whole study on numbers, and for those that have been with us, say, for a couple of years for sure, maybe a year and a half, you'll recall how God uses the same numbers over and over in the Bible, and with consistency, they represent the same concepts. So as we're looking through this, I want you to notice that there's a screen 20 cubits long. The main numbers of the Bible are small numbers. They're like 1, 2, 3, 3.5, 4, 5 also. However, we didn't really get to that one, didn't have time. That seems to be the number of grace, 5. 6 is the number of man, imperfection. 7 is the number of perfection. 10, the number of completeness. 12, the religious number. Okay, so on. And the good news is this: when you get to big numbers, if you don't like dealing with big numbers, well, it's the small numbers that are used together to make the bigger numbers, and so sometimes you have compound concepts. All right, so 20, the number 20, it breaks down into 10 and 2. 10 is the number of completeness. 2 is the number of power. If you prefer, you could do 5 and 4 as factors of 20. 5 is the number of grace. 4 is the number of the earth. And there are 2 tens. That's power, or 10 times 2, 10 plus 10 if you prefer. All right, down at the bottom, 4 pillars. 4 is the earthly number, and with the 4 sockets, there are 2 4s, so power that comes down from the earth. Now, I want to show you something here. You have the numbers. We've discussed those. That's fun and interesting. Now we're getting into the colors. And where it becomes really fascinating to me is when God brings colors and numbers together to produce ideas to us that he brings across. And so it seems to me, here's what's being stated, that when heaven, or blue from the thread, when heaven comes down, blue, to the earth for the people on the earth, and especially servants of God, experience complete 10, power 2. Or if you'd rather see it this way, when heaven, blue, comes down to the earth, 4, God's people are allowed to see and enjoy the power 2 of his grace, 5, if you want to break it down that way. But do you see how these are starting to be interwoven with one another, and they're found throughout Scripture, not just numbers. And you can look at it as just colors, and sometimes it's the colors and the numbers that are brought together. There's not a single detail of these things that is unimportant to the brilliant divine mind. So if you're dealing with God and his adoration, God says, I want blue, 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 because of where I live, and it's representative of where I dwell, the most holy place of heaven. But what if you were to worship something or someone other than God? Would it make sense to incorporate the color blue? There were people who were trying this in Jeremiah's day. Chapter 10 of the prophetic work, verse 8, and God says of the idols that they were concocting, but they are altogether dull-hearted and foolish. I like some of our translations of this. They are altogether stupid and foolish. Doesn't make sense. Notice what they're doing with these idols in verse 9. Blue and purple are their clothing. Purple because they're trying to designate them as kings or rulers over them, even though their own hands have made them. And blue because it's like they're ascribing to them that they rule in heaven above, over us. However, God says they are all the work of the 6 skillful men. But the Lord is the true God. He is the living God and the everlasting King. Now with royalty, we have what color? Purple. So God is purple, and to him belongs the color of purple. And he is the true living God who actually rules from heaven above, the blue. Therefore it is blue and purple that is reserved for him. But you had the six, the flawed, people who were carving out, molding from this melted metal. Once it would cool, these shapes that they wanted, or carving out from wood and from stone. And they wouldn't be done. Then they would dress it up in purple, as if that's a king and a ruler over them, something their own hands had created. And what's a little humorous is these people would not only clothe and bathe these gods, so to speak. They might even take them to the bathroom. I mean, it's like a baby. They do everything for these gods. And then they bow down before them and worship them. They wouldn't exist if the Creator wouldn't have made these things. And they ascribe to them purple colors as if they're real kings and rulers over them, and blue as if they come from heaven, when in fact they come from the earth. God says and implies this is a foolish thing because you're living out a lie in the colors that you're ascribing to these gods. We find the color blue in the clothing of the Lord's priests that would serve in his tabernacle. A whole lot of it. I just want to give you a few examples. Exodus 28 and what's being made for the priests to serve. Exodus 28, verses 5 and 6. They shall take the blue and make the ephod, which is a covering on the outside. Make the ephod of blue thread. You'll also see the purple scarlet, and here also gold thread is incorporated. Verse 8, the intricately woven band of the ephod shall be made of blue thread. Verse 28, they shall bind the breastplate by means of its rings to the rings of the ephod using a blue cord. Verse 31, you shall make the robe of the ephod all of blue. Verse 33, and the hem you shall make pomegranates of blue all around. Verse 37, you shall put on it a blue cord that it may be on the front of the turban. You think God likes the color blue and the priests and the clothing that they wear? Why is that so relevant? What exactly are the priests going to be doing for God? Look at verse 1 of this chapter. Now take Aaron your brother and his sons with him from among the children of Israel, that he may minister to me as priest. Aaron and Aaron's sons, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. I do want to state before I show you this, you're not going to see a lot of blue in what the priests have on. Now, they don't wear this stuff all the time. It's before they go into the tabernacle proper, the holy place, and serve and what they're going to do, they have to put this on. But I want us to think about what's the major role of priests for God. They have a lot of things they do pertaining to the tabernacle, then later on for the temple. A big part of their service is the gathering of the goats, sheep, the oxen, and the birds, proper ones, sacrificial ones, that have been given, sad, but to kill these innocent animals for their blood to be shed. And they essentially serve as mediators between the Lord in heaven and his people on the earth, to bring those of the earth closer to heaven, but they're representatives of heaven. And as these people are going to work for heaven, the color blue, God says, and these garments they wear, and when they go in and they do this work for me, representing the people, bringing me closer to I, the one who dwells in heaven, I want, from head to toe, I want to see threads of blue, 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 blue. He wants lots of blue to be found on them. Verse 2, and you shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother, for two reasons, for glory as well as for beauty. And so he's trying to make these holy garments full of blue for two reasons, so that they can be viewed as glorious and beautiful. I got to thinking about heaven and what the Bible tells us concerning it. I bet we have several here who could quote this passage. Psalm 19:1. Think anybody could do that? Psalm 19:1. It says, the heavens do two things. Number one, the heavens declare the glory of God. So you look up into the sky and you can see from that, wow, God is amazing in the sense of glorious. And some of this has to do with the celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, and the stars. But you look up, and only a fool could say in his heart, first of all, God doesn't exist, Psalm 14:1. But also Psalm 19:1, the heavens do two things, declare the glory of God, and the firmament, which is another way of saying heavens, shows his handiwork. or the beauty that our God has put into place? How many times in the day or at night, sunrise, sunset, middle of the day, middle of the night, have you looked up and said, wow, that is beautiful. Hey, check that out. Or just looked up and even in your mind, if you haven't communicated it, just thought, God is awesome to do that. But through the daytime, the chunk of the 24-hour period, we look up in the sky, and what color do we see when we say, wow, God is amazing or glorious? Look up and say, this is beautiful. What our God has made, what a beautiful God we serve. What color do we see? Typically, when we look up in the sky, if there's any kind of light. Now, I want you to look back at verse 2 of Exodus 28. And you shall make holy, very special garments for the priest, for Aaron your brother, for 2 reasons. I want glory to be manifest in them, and I want beauty to be observed. And so what color does he have interwoven from head to toe in these garments? But the color of heaven that declare 2 things, the glory of God as well as his beauty. Verse 15, you shall make the breastplate of judgment artistically woven. According to the workmanship of the ephod you shall make it, of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine wool linen you shall make it. So this is what the high priest is going to wear over the ephod, and there will be what's called a breastplate of judgment. What do you think the purpose of the breastplate of judgment would be? The high priest possesses power as one who lives among the rest, and he has judicial authority that is invested in him to make determinations about events and people, sometimes even their lives. How fitting that we're learning about Jesus in the letter to the Hebrews right now. Chapter 4, he is our great high priest, the one who has lived the same life that every one of us do. And we find out that one day we're going to appear before him in a glorious scene of judgment. Each one of us will stand before the judgment seat of Christ to give an account of ourselves. For those who have shown mercy and accepted God's mercy, James 2:13, that's with mercy that we do so. That's the way I want to appear before the judgment seat. And of course, we can appear without any mercy, and that's not going to be a beautiful scene if we do so. But where's that judgment going to take place? It's not going to be here. It's going to be in the heavenly realm, represented by the color blue. And so instruction is given representing Jesus and the judgment that will take place in heaven, making this breastplate of judgment, placing it on him. Make sure that you incorporate blue thread representative of where that eternal judgment of the great high priest will occur. Numbers chapter 4, verses 6 and 7. They shall put over that, now I know we don't have a lot of information there, but that's over the Ark of the Covenant. And this is for the transportation process. This is one of the jobs of the priest. The priests aren't going to be the carriers of all of these, but being the ones that go inside, they're going to have to get it all prepared so that it can be carried by their brothers, the Levites. They shall put over the Ark of the Covenant a cloth entirely of blue. On the table of showbread, I'm convinced representative of the Lord's Supper, on the table of showbread they shall spread a blue cloth. Verse 9, they shall take a blue cloth and cover the lampstand, lamps, wick trimmers, trays, all the oil vessels. 11 and 12, over the golden altar of incense they shall spread a blue cloth and cover it. They shall take all the utensils of service in the sanctuary, put them in a blue cloth, and put them on a carrying beam. Because these things are being transported on the earth, but these aren't merely earthly pieces, at least not in their representation. They represent heaven themselves. And so God says, I want you to put the covering of heaven and protection and their importance on them. Finally, blue is used in the adornment that all of God's people were to carry on a daily basis. Scott, you never thought we were going to get there, but here we find ourselves. Numbers chapter 15. We're going to close where we began. Numbers 15, verses 37 and 38. Again, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel. Tell them to make tassels. They're like graduates here. Tassels on the corners of their garments throughout their generations. This isn't simply for the priests. This is for all of God's people. And he says, I want this to be done for the next 1,500 years, as hindsight would understand it, and to put a blue thread in the tassels of the corners. So in the corners of your clothing, you're to be like a graduate, have tassels hanging down. And he says, make sure that you put a single blue thread in every one of those tassels on your body. What's the purpose of that? Marty, I'm fishing in my mind. I'm doing some white bass fishing. And I have a little marabou jig. The colors, chartreuse mainly of the body, and then on the bottom or skirt of it, it's white. There's only one kind I buy. It's a red jig head with a white eye, the chartreuse body, and then the skirt that's white. It looks beautiful of itself. But I always buy the kind, Joey, with tinsel in it. Tinsel's kind of a blue fleck that's just mixed into it. And there's a reason for that. It looks just like the ones that don't have the tinsel in it until you hold it up to the light or you get out and the sun's really shining. And as you're jigging and popping that in the water, man, it gives that little extra flash for the fish. It grabs their attention. And I think God's explaining this to us in some pretty simple terms that, hey, these tassels I want you to put on your garments, and maybe they're white or whatever. But he says, I want just a little bit of blue in there. I want some tinsel in that. I want there to be some flash so that it catches your attention. Verse 39, and you shall have the tassel that you may look upon it. Especially when that light hits it, it'll catch your eye, that blue in it. That you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of the Lord and do them. And that you may not follow the harlotry to which your own heart and your own eyes are inclined. Verse 40, and that you may remember and do all my commandments and be holy for your God. So the message is simple. I'm your God, you're my children, I'm the master, you're my servants. I have all these things that I want you to do. And so in what you wear, that's even important to me. And I want you to look like high school graduates everywhere you go. And I want you to put just a little bit of tinsel, just a single thread of blue and all these tassels that are in your garments. The purpose being so that it'll catch your eye. And when you see that blue fleck, when the sunlight hits it, you'll remember, oh yeah, God wants me to do this. Well, how is a single blue thread and a tassel on my clothing going to remind me of everything God wants me to do? All the Hebrews understood. Blue is the color of heaven. And as they're living out on the earth and they have so many of their own desires that they're encountering on a daily basis, when they see that blue glimmer on their garments, they remember the God who's washed them and has sprinkled them clean with blood. And the very God has made them holy to enter into the holy place. They remember heaven when they see that little bit of blue. And they're reminded, I don't live on the earth to live as other people do on the earth and to live for me. I live on the earth in preparation for heaven. We often say heaven is a prepared place for a prepared people and for my holy God who dwells there. Now, I know all of these passages we discussed are Old Testament. You ready for the New Testament connection to this? This is it. We're done, in case you're wondering. He's going to shut up soon. But hear me out on this one thing. Does this sound familiar to you? Colossians chapter 3, verse 2. Set your mind on things above, not on things of the earth. What's above us out here? Blue skies. Set your mind on blue, color scheme-wise, he's saying. Set your mind on heaven, what is blue, not the things here that are found on the earth. Prepare yourselves for it. Now, if you look at the previous verse of Colossians 3, it says, if then you were raised with Christ, stay with me. Previous chapter, same conversation. Chapter 2 of Colossians, verse 12, he says, you were buried with Christ in baptism, in which you were also raised with him through faith in the powerful working of God who raised him from the dead. So in chapter 3, he says, verse 1, if then you were raised with Christ, he's saying, if then you were baptized, seek those things which are above. What color would that be represented by? Seek the blue because of the clothing in which you now find yourself. The tassel that's on the edge of your garments and the blue thread that comes down Remember what happens when we're baptized? Colossians 3, verse 27. For as many of you as were baptized into Christ have put on or started wearing new clothing, the clothing of heaven, pure white garments with a tassel and a single blue thread, so that we'll always remember on the earth why we're here. It's not to live for the earth, but to live in preparation of the true land where actual life exists in heaven. The other thing I want to mention is this. Why would God choose to clean us up through a process called baptism? If you were a bird, which I don't think you are, but if you were a bird and you were flying high above the earth and you go across the whole surface of the earth, you would see 3/4 of this substance. And technically, water in its purest form is clear. But as it's perceived by human sight, when light is available, you look down, you look across, and water typically appears to be what color? Blue. I think there's a reason, yet another reason, that God chose this substance by which He would wash us, make us clean, pure, clothe us with what we need in Jesus, and prepare us for heaven, the blue. He would choose the blue substance on the earth to get us ready for heaven. If then you were raised with Christ, baptized, seek those things which are above, blue, where Christ is, sitting at the right hand of God. Ephesians 2 says He has now lifted us up and raised us in Jesus to seat us in the heavenly places, the blue, with Christ. Do you understand how important colors are to God? Now, do I need to know all this information about numbers and colors to go to heaven? No, you don't have to. But the point is this. God is brilliant, unlike any other. There isn't a single detail that goes unnoticed by Him. Every number is important. Every color is important. Every word is important. Every symbol is important. Jesus would say every jod or yod in Hebrew and tittle, which would be the smallest letter in the Hebrew language, as well as every crossing of the T and dotting of the I for us in English is important. If blue has never seemed important to you before, I hope it is more than ever. It might be the favorite color anyway of some people who are in this room. But I hope you understand that God has chosen this color, blue, to use it to prepare us on the earth to help get us to heaven. And how neat it is, we're starting to see that just like numbers, God has chosen all of these different colors, doesn't matter which one you pick, to get us closer to Christ. And just like a little child, you can pull that blue crayon out of the box when we stand and we sing this song here in just a moment, and you can start coloring it, not to draw a pretty picture, but to use it to color your way to Jesus. And if that's something that interests you, let God come call you higher as we stand and sing this song together.